Hello, everyone. This is Victoria Vesna, and you're listening to Vibrations Matter. In this episode, I sit down with Simone Giuliani, award winning composer from Italy, who tells me about his roots as a child in a small town close to Tuscany, and how he ended up in Malibu studying for 3 years with Fabienne Maman, and how all of this led to Yangchenma Arts and the radio show he is launching. Tune in and hear about Simone's journey into composing and collaborating to create and spread global sound and chill frequencies. Enjoy. Okay, so we finally sit down and talk, and I'm excited to talk to you in person, even though we pass each other by nonstop. Here we are in LA after the fires. And we're all adjusting to a lot of chaos. You're on your way to East Coast and Italy, moving around in your nomadic lifestyle. I'm very curious to hear a little bit about where those light bulb moments started for you. Early on. Were you studying piano or some kind of music when you were little?
I was. I sort of stepped into music because I was unable to do a lot of what the other kids at the time were doing in Italy, which was soccer. And so music became already an escape, but also a way to sort of find myself a little bit. Yeah.
And reclaim your space. Right?
Absolutely, yeah. And yeah, so then that thing kind of was the light bulb moment, and then it evolved, of course, over the course of 45 years.
Wow. So was it always piano?
Yeah, well, I started off with the marching band. I grew up in a small village, and so,
cool.
yeah, the only position available was to play the snare drum. So I played the snare drum. I started when I was like 9 or 10, which was fun because, and that was actually, I thought it was great in hindsight to think about it because it was such a community vibe to be
right. And
this.
The rhythm, the ritual, the gathering. Absolutely.
Exactly, yeah. So there was the element of community.
Yes.
And kind of feeling already part of a little tribe, So that was, I think that was a very nice start.
Escaping from soccer, you weren't isolating yourself. You were actually finding a whole community. Very cool.
Yeah, so I think I was lucky in that sense because there was the possibility, which was kind of, I think, a slim chance because the village at the time had probably 1,500 inhabitants, 1,500 people. So
What's the name of the village?
Molin del Piano, that's where I was.
Close to where? What's the big city?
Florence, Italy.
Well,
yeah.
of course, Florence, Firenze, of course. So from there, did you end up going to school in Florence?
Yeah, yeah, of course. I went to school in Florence, and then
Also music school?
I didn't go to a music school, but I was going to music school as a second school. So I have a degree in languages, which was not exactly what I wanted to do, but I decided to go to this language school, but at the same time I was going to music school.
I just always find it fascinating how these baseline kind of foundations end up informing you. And even though you didn't want to go to language schools and you ended up playing the snare drum, what we see now is you going across many languages and across many cultures and systems and being involved in community and rituals. So I'm really happy to hear about this groundwork that you had. Sometimes you decide on this, and sometimes life decides to throw you into languages, right?
Yeah.
So now we move into what after that happened where you went, oh, this is really interesting beyond music.
Yeah, and also as you travel, I don't know, for me, most interesting part is that, of course, you don't know it until you see it, right? And then you start traveling. So let's say you go to London and you feel a little bit intimidated, and then the first thing that happens is like the moment you meet another musician, that's it. There's no same thing happen in New York, Singapore, Miami, LA, all the cities that I had the chance to.
The language of sound, the language of music.
Absolutely. So that's, and it's so easy and spontaneous. There's no need to explain anything.
That's right. It's universal.
Yeah, we can definitely say that. And actually, I think that's beautiful because you could literally have this very intimate connection with anybody. It could be an old taxi driver from Delhi that is also a musician, or it could be the 17-year-old kid from London. You know, it's the same exact feeling.
Beautiful, beautiful. And that's the core of what you are about, right? To go across cultures and across generations and speak through music and sound and frequency.
Yeah, of course. That's I don't know. It just makes sense to me to explore that, and the more we do that work, and the more I confirm this thought. It's a beautiful way for me to spend my human existence. It's a beautiful way to live music that way to me. It's about connection, and it's spontaneous, and it kind of ties it wraps the whole thing together in a very nice and simple way.
Yeah. So that brings me to the question I was leading up to, even though it may not seem obvious. You arrived to meet or work with or study with Fabienne Maman. And I'm really very interested in that and how that ended up shaping your approach to composition, to sound, and to everything else that you're doing now.
When I came here to LA, I was in a little bit of a particular moment musically, because my son was about to be born, and I had a complete sort of like life.
That will change your life.
Yeah, I had a bit of a life moment, and so I just happened to find a video of this incredible person, and I just wanted to know more, and I found out that he was literally living 20 minutes from my house.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I called up and we met, and instantly we had this beautiful connection that I felt had that component that I just talked about, which was the music connection. But at the same time, I felt that this person did so much work he really took a deep dive, starting from the same point of musical connection to other humans, but he went so deep into so many different aspects, astrology, vibrations, medicine, and so that for me was, of course, like I felt like I found
You found your teacher.
I found my teacher, yes.
And how amazing and karmic to be 20 minutes away. That's incredible, at the point where your son is arriving to the world. It's beautiful. So how did you work with him? How did you study with him?
I became a student, and strangely enough, I was the only musician in this small group of students, which I found so strange. But that really helped develop this strong bond with him, because he was a former musician. I mean, you never stop being a musician, right? But he started off as a very accomplished guitar player, actually. So he toured the world as a guitar player, and then he had a beautiful, insightful moment where he knew that he could do so much more. And then he started his studies. And the one thing that I loved about Fabien was that he was so meticulous and serious about proof that his theories were scientifically solid. So everything that you would read in his books or hear in his teachings had years of studies, actually scientific studies behind them. And that made me feel so attracted to this because, as you know, it's a very trendy.
Yes, it's very new age and it's off the cuff. I feel good vibes, right?
Exactly. So I also have a bit of a controversial and strong thought about frequencies and the hertz, which I can tell you about. But for me, I recognize how a lot of the things that are said and presented now in terms of sound healing and anything that relates to the connection between the holistic element connected to music is actually, I think that 90% of all these people don't even know what a frequency is. If you ask them what is a frequency.
Yes.
So all these talks about the different types of frequencies and the numbers and all that stuff. With my teacher, I realized right away that he was so honest about all that stuff. So I felt that was the real deal.
Absolutely. And did he work with scientists too to show them his theories and collaborate? He had scientists who were looking into it as well.
Yeah, especially in the beginning, which was the 70s, way before. He was, I think, the only musician slash sound healer of the time and pioneer in vibrational therapy to be so honest about his work that he teamed up with a scientist in Paris. I think the connection was through the University of Paris, and they were doing experiments for 7 years before they even published a word about what they were thinking they found.
And so all these people that are working with vibration, healing, did they even hear of Fabien? Do they know any of the background of this? I would say most know. So hopefully this brings it more into the discussion and brings his work back. I'm curious how, to circle back to the very beginning, how did he end up in Malibu?
That part I don't sorry. That part I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting.
It's really interesting that he ended up in Malibu. I guess California was the Mecca. Certainly that would be more accepting of this kind of research for sure. But yeah, so continue then on how it affected your work. How long did you work with him directly?
I studied with him about 3 years. Wow. Yeah, so I took a little break from music actually, and I wanted to explore more. I wasn't burnt out or anything with music. I just felt it was a good time for me to dive a little deeper. And so after I finished my path with him, I was in a complete crisis. I didn't know if I wanted to keep making music, which I've been doing already for more than 25 years. And then I went back to see him to ask for advice. Like, what do I do now?
My guru.
And the answer was very short and beautiful, which was like, music is your central axis. You should never stop making music. And you can apply all this new knowledge you have and these new teachings into your music. So that was his answer, and that's what I did.
Yeah. So that was a real reaffirmation. And then obviously it must change your music, your approach to sound, and also how you listen, right? So what was the first project that you did right after you finished his study with Fabian?
Funnily enough, that was the soundtrack of Deep into Shambhala, which was a movie about Tibet that then led me to embrace the Vajrayana teachings, and that was sort of my first transmission
Transmission through the movies.
through the
That's very LA.
very late, yes. And at the time, I didn't even know that what the monks in the movie were chanting. I didn't know that it was Tibetan at first. I was just approaching it as a work as a work project, as a soundtrack that I have to write. And then as I was working in it, I realized, oh my God, this is so beautiful. And then I met Christiana at Purland Farms, and that was already almost 7 years ago.
Incredible. So you know that our whole cellular structure changes every 7 years.
Oh, okay.
Watch out. It's a new era. It's a new era for Simone. So wait, but how did you get the invitation to do the soundtrack for that movie? How did that come along?
A friend of mine sent me this film, and she told me it's a film that she was working on. She was in the crew of this film, and she told me, I think you should check it out, but they already have a composer. I said, okay. And when I saw it, I saw the trailer. I was like, this movie is insanely beautiful. And so just almost jokingly, I sent the director 1 minute of a song of mine, and I put it on the trailer where there was already some music. But I said, I don't mean to be too forward, but your movie is so beautiful that I just wanted to match my music to your film. And then he called me back and said, we want you to write the music. So I didn't know, but I guess they were already looking for a different music person for the film, so that just happened.
It's so amazing to hear this, and actually reaffirming to young artists to just go with their gut, right? Because you just did it. You didn't even have any expectations, but he responded to your vibration. The frequency was correct, and it just moved to a whole other realm. And so then, how did Yangchenma come about? Is that soon after or recent?
Yeah, Yangchenma was a concept that Christiana started many years, I think before even Purland Farms.
Really?
Yes, and then Purland Farms, as you know, is the retreat center and the headquarters of the Tibetan Medicine Center here in LA. And Yangchenma was started, I think, I don't know exactly how many years before, but it was something that she always had in her drawer. And then when we met, we thought that music could be this
The link.
yes, music could be the link. And then of course, as you know, Yangchenma is the goddess of fine arts, and she's the protector of all artists, musicians, and so we thought that music could be a great way to reignite this beautiful idea. And of course there's a healing component to it, there's a community component to it, there's a tradition component to it, and so it all really came together in a super spontaneous, organic way.
You know, listening to you, it just sounds like it's all predestined. It just seems like there's all these intersections, and then the next thing leads to the next thing, and just following the path. And here we are now in this time that's really intense and that requires so much healing. And healing that's not provided by the established medical system. Healing that's questionable a lot of times with, the new age or people jumping on the bandwagon. So to have music that's, to me, like any form of art, where it doesn't necessarily align with a tradition or with a school, but it really just comes from the soul. how do you imagine it moving on? What do you imagine as events or as ways to come back to that ritual that you started with as a young kid?
You mean for me
Yeah,
personally?
what's the dream? What's the dream of you and Yangchenma and in general? So you're now at that 7 year intersection. Time to dream, dream big. I want to hear it.
Well, it's shaping up really nicely. I feel that um, the music in general and the instinct that people have towards music. And the good news is that it's not just for musicians. It's not just about musicians. It's about every human being. So I feel that we are already born and wired from birth to receive and understand what music means. Then, of course, you can choose if you want to make it or compose it or assemble it
Or listen.
or just listen to it,
Or
exactly,
dance.
or enjoy it and dance it. And it doesn't matter. It's just the way that you want to interpret this beautiful natural skill that you have. And so, for me right now, I am beyond excited because through Yangchenma we can go around the world and see what people have to say through music. And I think it's that is my sort of lifelong dream because now we have this great possibility of traveling or not traveling, and we have this possibility of hearing instantly what people have to say and how they feel and what sounds they want to make, which was not possible when I started making music. It would have been an inconceivable task.
And then
to-
somebody mentioned that they wouldn't believe you anyway.
Absolutely. And why would you care to know what happens in Morocco, whatever. And so now the whole idea, as I was telling you before, is for me not much documenting what's happening in the traditions, which I think has been already documented so well. There are several record labels and archives of beautifully recorded music.
And ethnomusicology departments in all kinds of universities. So it's definitely an established and well documented area, yeah.
Yeah, so our thinking was like, why repeat something that has already been done? So we're definitely focusing on the cross genre and what happens when you put a Mongolian group of third singers with a phenomenal bass player from LA.
Or a rapper.
Or a rapper, exactly. Or, so we have done so much research about this, and we found so many interesting artists, and the game and the dance is to see what happens when you match things together.
The unexpected, right? What is the third thing that emerges out of the two, right? That's the magic, the magic moment.
Yes, because if I may add, maybe that's what world music means now.
Like for real. Exactly. Something that's not even determinable, which is what's happening to our cultures everywhere around the world. We're so connected, it's hard to tell even where somebody's from anymore because everybody's sharing the same platforms or similar platforms. And there's, of course, a lot of resistance to this from the past paradigm, that don't want to let go. So we have to deal with that resistance and to not necessarily fight it head on, but fight it through uniting through sound and through even mental vibrations, on all kinds of levels. So the last thing I wanted to ask you is how you're planning this Yangchenma radio and what you're thinking about, how that moves you closer to the vision you have.
Well, we thought that the radio is the perfect speakerphone, or how do you call it? The loudspeaker. Sorry.
Speakerphone.
It's the perfect loudspeaker. It's instant. It's quick. You can hear it from anywhere you're driving, through LA traffic,
Yes.
or you're in the subway in New York, whatever, or you're in Singapore or Bali. The radio is 24 hours. It features all the artists that are on the label, and it features interviews with artists, and it explores in the music's part of it. It explores exactly this, like what's the intention of all these musicians? What pushes all these humans?
What's driving you?
What's driving you? And then of course we also connect with the holistic part of it. So there's a health and wellness section, as well as Dharma, guided meditations, which I think are very useful, especially now.
Wow, it's essential. It's survival, really. And it's wonderful that you're doing this. So when is it finally going to launch? And now you're on record. Be careful.
I should answer like the monks. It's okay.
When it happens.
When it happens.
Exactly. Maybe.
Yes. I wanted to. Can I add one thing?
Of course, you can add many things. We're not rushing.
I wanted to. This is one thought that I think connects so well with the vibrations matter, and it's, you know how there's all this talk about hertz, and how do you measure this and how do you measure that, and the one lesson that I learned, which helps me so much through composition, and also when you approach people, it transcends music. It is something that I like to call is the frequency of intention.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
And I think it's important because before even the unit that we call hertz was invented, which by the way, the hertz name was approved in the 60s.
Oh,
and
so late.
yeah, very
I
late.
realized that.
It's a kind of an industrial revolution
Yes,
byproduct. So
The machine.
yeah, which makes sense from a scientific viewpoint, because you want to measure things and you want to test things, right? And sound is also part of that, and vibrations. But the most important thing is the intention, and that connects so well with everything, because from all the scientific studies that have been done, it has been discovered, as you know, that vibrations apply to every living organism. So if you want to zoom out and then go all the way in, we start from an ecosystem, from a planet, which rotates and vibrates, right? And then as you zoom in, even into the human body, it has been found that at the very core of the smallest particle, there's vibration. But the vibration, this is the interesting part that relates to the intention. The vibration is born out of a vacuum, out of nothing. So to create a vibration, which is a movement out of nothingness, you need intention. So somehow there's this mysterious force that pushes something to start the first little tiny movement that then creates a faster movement, which becomes a vibration, and that creates life. So that for me explains so well why the moment that you're born, you're already completely ready to, as I told you before, to receive and create sound. And that becomes so integrated with your system, because that's where you actually come from. Mm-hmm. You're coming from a vibration.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And really, when you're speaking of nothingness, you're talking about empty space.
Absolutely.
And as you were saying that, I thought the empty space is the intent.
Yes.
Right? That's the intent that we can't grasp, and it's so much larger than us. But it's really amazing to think about it that way. Empty space as intent.
And to think of the beauty of the design of the human body connected to sound. We are so well perfected that we are filtering out all the unnecessary sounds and vibrations. Otherwise, we would explode.
We
If now we could hear the frequency of the giant mass, rotating mass that we're on right now, which is the planet, we will literally not be able to survive, because our brain would explode to hear this very low frequency. So automatically our hearing system is blocking out all the things that we don't need in order for us to function. And I would like to think that this mechanism is designed so that we can connect with each other and be in this community that we call being alive.
Planetary community. And it also shows how important it is to remember that it took billions of years, millions, for us to be as we are, and to see people putting more trust in these technologies that took 50 years or maybe 100 if you're generous, just seems ridiculous. So yes, we love it, and yes, it expands our communication and our networks, etc. But a lot of times people trust it more than their own body, their own intuition, their own sense of self. And I believe that what you're doing and the sounds and the music and bringing people together actually brings that back. It helps you get more in touch with yourself. Whether it's analog or electronic even doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, also there's this beautiful element of sort of letting go, which is not really letting go, right? Let's say you're dancing and you're completely lost in that moment. It's the same exact thing that happened to a musician when we say you're in the zone. That's what happens. It's just your whole there's no ego.
That's right.
There's no separation. There is nothing constructed by man in that moment. It's the real you, isn't it? So it's like the dancer or the sculptor or the painter or the musician.
Exactly.
So that is the moment that we all sort of sometimes aspire to.
Well, I think this is where good artists are able to bring people into that place. In other words, we by our practice and by our nature, we get to that point, kind of like long-time meditators that can instantly get into it. We can do it pretty quick. Absolutely. But then comes the real art. Well, how do you pull others into that state? Others who have no clue or never even touched anything like that. And that's where Yangchenma can really contribute. So fabulous. I love getting this spectrum of complexity that you bring in, and everything you talked about really explains to me so much more about what you do and how you came to it. So thank you so much, Simone.
Thank you.
I really appreciated this talk. It made me happy.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care.